Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about a couple tips I have for grooming your dog. In specific terms, we're going to be talking a little bit about brushing and some nail trim tips. If you're struggling with grooming issues with your dog at home, you definitely are not alone. A lot of owners struggle with this and a lot of dogs struggle with this as well. It can be kind of an uncomfortable process for your dog, but there are a lot of ways that we can help them. All of these tips that you're going to find in this video, you also absolutely can apply to things other than nail trims and brushing. These are just the two common issues with my own personal dogs that I'm working through right now with them. So I'm going to use as examples in this video. One of the first things that you want to start to think about is your dog's past experiences with this stuff. So if they have had a negative association, they've had a bad, unhappy experience, it doesn't have to be a horror story whatsoever, but they just didn't have very good positive feelings about a particular grooming situation that they were in, the first thing that you want to think about is actually switching up the physical location. This doesn't have to be a huge move. You could be talking about within your own house. If your dog has had negative experiences, let's say in your training room or your bonus room, as an example in my house, where they've not had super positive feelings and you've kind of just had to get the job done and clip their nails or get them brushed, but they didn't feel super happy about it, to then start working up your way towards positive feelings, switching to, let's say, your living room. If that was a room that they have no prior associations with, that can actually really help and go a long way in resetting their brains in terms of their feelings about the environment and the situation that's going on itself, and they won't go into the session already having some negative associations with it. Along with that, you can think about the tool that you have associated with it. If they have a past prior negative experience with, let's say, some nail clippers, you might decide to switch to a nail Dremel instead. It's a completely different tool. You could also switch to a different pair of clippers, but if your dog has had negative experiences with clippers, a lot of times there's a lot of success that we can have with switching the tool entirely to a Dremel that actually just files down your dog's nails instead of there being a lot of pressure involved, which clippers tend to do. Same thing with a brush. You could just switch brushes. If you were using a slicker brush before, you might start to work with a softer bristled brush to start with, and then over time work your way back up as your dog becomes more comfortable to something more like a slicker brush. The next tip that I have is to prep your treats ahead of time. As a Happy Howie's official training partner, I want to talk about why I like using their meat rolls for grooming exercises with my dogs. Now, this is one of their 2-pound meat rolls. I'm using the lamb flavor here. Additionally, you can get other flavors. Happy Howie's on their site also has beef and turkey in addition to the lamb flavor. You also can get this roll in a different size. They also offer a 7-ounce roll and a 12-ounce roll. If you're looking for a particular size or amount of treats, they have options. This took me maybe 7 minutes total to cut up. I'm gonna speed this up quite a bit, but I want you guys to be able to see how easy it is to cut this up. I could have used my onion chopper for this. I love putting my Happy Howie's treat rolls into an onion chopper, but I wanted to make sure I was controlling the actual size of the treat. So that's actually one of the reasons that I really like using this meat roll, is you can control the size of treat that you get out of it. I wanted smaller cut treats for these grooming exercises, so one of the great things is you can customize how small your treats are, and it's very easy to do so. Cutting them into smaller chunk sizes or treat sizes is going to be ideal because you're going to go through a lot more treats when it comes to grooming exercises. But the other thing that I like about this treat roll is it's also stinky and soft, and it's not going to crumble very easily in your hands. You can tell that just by how I'm cutting it up here. It's nice and smooth, so it doesn't get everywhere. You can very fastly and efficiently deliver treats to your dogs, and because it's stinky and it's soft, it's going to be seen as more high value to most dogs. You also get a ton of treats in one of these 2-pound rolls. This will last me a few weeks with the dogs. I have 2 Tupperware containers right here. One of these I'm going to store immediately in my freezer so I can keep the treats as fresh as possible. The other one I'm going to keep in my fridge, and then what I will be able to do from there is just grab that out when I need it and dump some into a separate bowl for whatever portion size I want to work with that day. So that's something that you can can easily divide this up and save it for later. All you have to do is cut these up right at the start, and like I said, it took under 10 minutes. So if you're able to pick up one of these meat rolls to use for your grooming conditioning exercises with your dogs, I would highly recommend it. I will leave a link to their website in the description of this video so you can check it out. Another tip that I have is if you happen to have multiple dogs in your household and one of those dogs feels better about a specific thing that you're trying to work on your other dog with, using your dog that feels pretty all right with that situation happening to them can actually really help your other dog as well. So as an example, my dog Wrigley does really well with brushing. She tolerates it beautifully. She knows she gets paid for it. It's not her favorite thing in the world, admittedly. I don't need her to love it, but I want her to be more neutral with it, and she totally is. She actually really enjoys being brushed along her neck. It's kind of like pets and scratches for her. But my puppy Fenway, on the other hand, doesn't really love any sort of handling procedure being done to him, and he doesn't really choose to opt in all that often. So what I've actually done with that situation is my dog Wrigley knows, and I'm going to show a video of this, my dog Wrigley knows that she's going to get rewarded after I brush her for a little bit. She opts in, she'll approach me. When I have the brush, I give her the option to approach me, and we're going to talk about that later. But she'll approach me, I'll brush her for a bit, and then I'll say yes, and she knows she's going to get a whole bunch of food afterwards. So she's actually relatively calm, and that happens to her quite a bit because she's got a lot of hair. So she's very tolerant of brushing. Fenway has learned in that situation, and he totally just is the dog that wants to participate in everything that she's doing, him being like the younger brother in the situation. So once she's gotten a turn, what I started to notice is Fen would actually approach me and do the same thing. What Wrigley does is she'll stand or she'll sit right in front of me and she'll kind of look at me, and that's my cue to her, or that's her cue to me to say, please just start. Do the thing, I'm here and present, do the thing, and then I get my food. So Fen has actually learned the exact same thing, that he'll approach me and he'll kind of duck his head down, and him ducking his head down like that is actually kind of his start button cue. So it looks like he's really afraid of the situation, but over and over and over again, this is the behavior that he has done. I have given him plenty of opportunity to walk away, and he has decided, I want to do it. Just do it, and then he gets a ball as a reward in the very end. So he has actually learned to tolerate and be pretty okay with brushing because of my other dog and simply just watching what she does. So on the other hand, Wrigley is not a huge fan of nail trims. This is something that's really difficult for her, and there's a lot of fear associated with that for her. So I'm actually involving my puppy in a lot of these nail trimming sessions and training workups with it because he doesn't really have very negative associations with it. He's actually pretty neutral about it. And so including him into the picture there when we're working at these training sessions, rather than working with Wrigley alone, she can actually feel a lot of his energy off of that situation. He's not totally okay with handling and stuff like that, but he has a much more positive attitude when it comes to those training sessions than she does. So I always work on that together so that they can kind of feed off of one another. And ultimately, in the long run, it will help Wrigley out. So I also mentioned that I use a ball as a reward for my puppy Fenway. He is much more toy motivated than he is food motivated. So I use a lot of toys as reinforcements for him when it comes to just general training and cooperative care stuff, which is kind of what we're talking about today, teaching your dog to be okay with different stuff being done to them, like nail trims and brushing. I've taught him how to also work for a toy as a reinforcement because he's way more willing to participate and opt in if he has that really high, strong value reinforcer is the ball for him. For Wrigley, she's much more food motivated. I would never use a toy as a reinforcer for her. But if you have a really toy motivated dog, you can include toys into the mix here. You want to use whatever is most high value to your dogs. In order for them to want to opt in, we have to give them something that is of the utmost value to them. And for my puppy Fen, that is toys 100% of the time. For Wrigley, that is food 100% of the time. But I would also strongly recommend using food initially to teach your dog how the game actually works and what you're going to be doing, as when you bring the toy into play, a lot of times it heightens our dog's arousal levels, and for Ben especially, he hyper focuses on the toy and doesn't really pay full attention to what is happening to him otherwise. But for this type of stuff, I want my dogs completely aware of what is happening to them so they can absorb that, and then they get the reinforcer in return for that thing happening to them. So when you actually start to work with your dogs, initially I would again reward them just for leaving that food bowl on the ground alone. You can put this in a different location. You could have the treats in a treat bag. I like to keep them out in front of my dogs so that they know that reinforcement is there and available for them, but we have to teach them how to leave it alone. So lots of rewards in the very beginning for you setting it down and then leaving it alone. What I'm working through here is some handling skills. I don't have a grooming tool in hand initially. I want to work my dogs first through me actually handling their paws. So both of my dogs know how to offer one paw. That becomes very helpful when it comes to nail trim exercises. If your dog doesn't know how to do that, I would recommend teaching them how to do that first. So once you have that, you can ask them to offer a paw. If they don't have that quite yet, that's okay. All you're going to do is reach and touch their paw, and the moment you touch their paw, or the moment that they put their paw in your hand, I'm marking with yes, and then I'm feeding. And then here, you're going to see me do this. I give my dogs a lot of breaks. Their like go-to start button cues is coming back in front of me and lying down again. That lets me know, okay, we're good to proceed. We can continue with the exercise, but I always give them breaks and options to walk away if they want to. They're welcome to stand up and walk away at any point. That's really important here, but I also always toss a treat away just to give them that option. So again, we're just doing lots of repetitions of this. I'm asking for a paw, and initially I am just asking for the paw, and the moment the paw hits my hand, then I am immediately rewarding. But what I'm starting to do here is actually wrap my hand around their paw, because eventually I will need to hold on to their paw while I trim their nails. So they have to get used to that pressure of me actually wrapping my hand around their paw as well. This is something that Wrigley is more uncomfortable with. She a lot of times will want to move her paw away from the pressure of that. So this is something that I'm working on with her very slowly. Like right there, she kind of backed her paw away. But as we move forwards with this, a little bit more pressure is helpful here. Now, coming up in a second, you're going to see a clip of my puppy get momentarily nervous right here, where his ears dipped back. I'm going to show you a slow motion video of that right there. If your puppy or your dog, when you're working on this, gets nervous, you're immediately going to stop what you're doing and feed. The very next repetition I made it easier for him. I didn't wrap my hand around, and what happened there was I added pressure to it, which he was uncomfortable with. So make sure you're watching your dog's body language and making it easier for them on the next repetition. And I decided to end my session there. Now, in this next tip, we're working through the actual tool itself. So I've got a nail Dremel right here that I'm working with the dogs on the sound of. I have it turned on, and I am just counter conditioning, which means I'm pairing a positive thing, the food, with the sound of the Dremel. I turn the Dremel off, the food stops. Now I'm placing it on the ground, I'm holding it in my hand, just letting them know there are a whole bunch of different ways that you could potentially see this, but this tool being present equals good things happen to you guys. And they don't have to do anything to earn the food when the Dremel is present. Initially, when you're working on this, just it being present and the sound turned on equals they get food. Now here I'm starting to combine concepts a little bit. So I'm actually holding on to the Dremel and I'm asking them for a paw. I don't have the Dremel turned on here. I made it easier again. When I'm increasing criteria, I always want to go back and make things easier for my dogs. So Dremel is off. I just happen to be holding it in my other hand. And as we move forwards with this, we're going to start to, again, kind of combine concepts. So we're going to start to get the Dremel closer to their paws. And I want them to see that picture of the Dremel coming closer and closer to their paws as a positive thing. And we're working our way towards it actually approaching their nail all the way and touching it. I would work this up when the Dremel is off first and then start to turn it on. Ben free. Weeks so then. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. These are just some initial step tips The more broken down the pieces initially you can make, the better your dog is going to be able to grab onto this. And the more practice they do, the better they're going to get with it. So keep consistent with it. Work on it daily if possible in short time spans. And pick up a Happy Howie's roll to help you out with that. Take the treat element and the quantity and the quality and all of that stuff out of the picture, out of the question. Pick up a roll to work on your grooming skills with your dogs. Good luck with training at home. I'll see you guys in my next video.